struggle with my list. Normally I know exactly what it is I'm getting, and I don't have this problem. But there were certain versions of things that I wanted to try in a dish that I'm making this week. And I wanted it obviously to be plant-based. And so I'm on the aisle looking for this particular dish. And I'm looking for pesto. This is what I'm making. And every single thing that I looked at had words in it that I couldn't pronounce. Like, it's just, it was ridiculous. It wasn't food. It was just like chemicals. And I thought to myself, okay, you know what? I can make this myself. All I need is like 5 ingredients. I know what the base of pesto is. I pretty much know what it is. I can make this vegan. I'll make it myself. Well, then I decided to make my Beyond Burgers this weekend. And we didn't have any hamburger buns because, like I said, I don't do a whole bunch of bread. So every now and then we'll have the Beyond Burgers. And so I'm looking for buns, and every single bun that I ran across either had milk in it or a long list of ingredients of stuff, again, I didn't know what it was, chemicals. So I had been researching over the years about different chemicals that's in food and, you know, why you should avoid processed food. So I wanted to kind of share some of that with y'all. The first thing I notice is, if you look at the ingredient list, the first 5 things that's on that list is what there is an abundance of in. So if you're looking at bread and the first thing you see is something that's bleached, okay, so that means they processed the flour. So whenever I buy hamburger buns or bread, I always get unbleached flour as the first ingredient because I don't want them to bleach my flour. So in other words, you're not having white flour. You're going to have whole grain bread or something like that. It wouldn't be white. So the second thing I noticed is whenever you see words that are like 10 letters long, yeah, avoid it. That's a chemical. There's no food that's 10 letters long. I'm gonna double check that, but I'm almost certain that there's no food that's 10 letters long. So what I did was I started researching something about a paper I'm doing for school with the link between nutrition and depression. And one of the first things that popped up was chemical-laden food, and it was talking about processed foods. So I wanted to share some of that stuff with y'all. First, the first thing that stood out to me is in children, we see a lot of ADHD, attention deficit disorder. You see a lot of hyperactivity. You see a lot of anxiety in children. Like, we're seeing children have issues that they didn't have when I was coming up. I mean, when I was coming up, there was no such thing as medication for ADHD or, oh, well, she's hyperactive, you know, and all this. Like, they didn't have all of that stuff. I mean, it's like unheard of. And now you're seeing more and more children that are actually on medication for hyperactivity. And so I started researching and found that there was a link between hyperactivity in children with nutrition and more importantly, chemical processed food. So the more foods that have chemicals in it that children eat, the more likely they are to have hyperactivity. I saw another study that talked about brain development in children, and not just like brain development, like, okay, the normal stages of brain development in children, but how children actually process how they learn. So now we're seeing that children are unfortunately not learning at a faster pace like they used to back in the day. And again, linked to chemicals in the food, processed food. So now we have ADHD in children. We have a cognitive decline now in children that are eating processed foods. Another thing that I've noticed is depression is linked to processed food. Have you ever wondered why some days you just feel off? And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but sometimes I feel like there's nothing wrong with me. Like, I'm not sick. I don't feel bad. Nothing hurts. But I just feel off. It's almost as if there's like a brain fog, or mentally I'm just not there. And so I noticed in my research with that, processed food can cause cognitive decline in adults. It can cause brain fog. So all of these things have me thinking more and more about, okay, I need to start reading the labels, because the last thing I want to do is inflict harm on myself or inflict harm on my family because I don't have the knowledge of what I need to avoid. The biggest thing that stood out to me, y'all, is processed food can actually promote cancer in the body. And I'm not talking about, you know, eating one thing that's processed, or you have a couple things a week that's I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a diet that's consisting of highly processed food, meaning that the majority of what you eat is from a box, from a bag, from a package. Processed food that obviously we know is not freshly made. So let's give you an example. Okay, TV dinners. We know TV dinners have chemicals in it, right? One of the things that I've started doing is, if you look at the box or the jar or the can or the bag or whatever it is you're buying in the grocery store, if you look at the expiration date, and the expiration date is like a year and past, it's got a lot of chemicals in it. How do we know that? Because how are you going to have food to last this long? How is it possible for food to last for years on a shelf? Because there's a lot of chemicals in it that preserves it. So now you have preservatives in your food, which is also linked to cancer. So my thing is, not only am I reading labels now to look at those first 5 ingredients, but I'm looking at the whole list. If I'm buying something in the store and there's like 20 things in it, no, like, why? Like, how can we get closer to eating actual food? Because if you think about it, the stuff that we're buying in the store, it's probably got like 20% of food. The other 80% is chemicals, preservatives. That's pretty much what you're eating, which is no wonder why you're seeing more and more people obese, because of the fact that when you're eating chemicals and not actual food, you're not satiated, because your body is looking for the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients that's in food. And if you're only eating 20% of that from a TV dinner, you're not satisfied, which means you're going to eat something else. And this is how we have a culture now of overeating. It's just like every time you look around, someone is overeating. Whatever happened to eating to live, not living to eat? Like, we just don't see that anymore. Why don't we see that anymore? Another thing I noticed is just about everything you get that's prepackaged or processed has sugar in it. Have you really noticed that? Have you paid attention to that? Do you realize that research says that sugar affects your brain the same way that drugs affect your brain? The reason why there's sugar in everything that we're eating now is, number one, it causes us to be addicted to that thing, right? Because it's literally changing the way that our brain is functioning. And number two, sugar tastes good. So we're going to give you something that tastes good, and that's going to make you hooked on it. So instead of you not buying as much stuff that's processed, you buy more and more of it because it tastes good and you're becoming hooked on it. realize if you do a no sugar challenge for 30 days, that you literally put your body into detox mode? Like, that's the next thing that I'm doing, guys. I'm going to do that next. I am almost to 30 days on a plant-based vegan diet. I make my 30 days, and I think like maybe 2 or 3 days from now, I'll be 30 days. But after I do this 30 days, I'm going to go a little bit further and do 30 days with no added sugar. Now, I know that's not an easy feat because anything you buy has sugar in it, but I know what my go-tos are going to be, right? I can easily grab some fruit. I can make me a smoothie. I can do some stuff that doesn't have sugar in it. It might take a little homework to get it done, but I can get it done. Because I really want to see what happens to my body when I purge it from the sugar. So I just wanted to kind of let y'all know, when you're doing your grocery shopping, whether you're going once a month, every 2 weeks, once a week, please pay attention to the package. Look at the label. Look at what it says on the box. Look at what it says on the bag. And my rule of thumb is, again, if it has more than 10 letters in a word as one of the ingredients, I don't need to get it. If it has 20 ingredients, I mean, really, I'm to the point now, if there's more than 10 things in something, I don't need to get it. So start paying attention to that stuff, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that can be going on in our bodies that we attribute to stress, we attribute to just life. But at the end of the day, a good portion of it, I really believe, is all about what we put in our body. It's all about the food that we're eating. And if you want to get really technical, we're not eating food. I mean, if you're thinking back to what I just said, about 20% of what you're eating has actual food in it and the rest is preservatives, chemicals, then you're not really eating food. Which is why so many people also are vitamin deficient and don't even realize it. Like, it's funny how people will talk about vegans and say, oh, vegans don't have B12, or vegans don't have protein, and vegans don't have this. The crazy thing is, people who are on a standard American diet are more vitamin and nutrient deficient than people who eat plant-based. But we are a society now that's brainwashed to think we have to have the cereals in the box. We have to have the Pop-Tarts. We have to have the cookies. We have to have the chips that's fried in like 4 and 5 different oils. Like, that's not food. And it's not as hard as you think to start eliminating these processed foods from your diet. Dude, like, I've even saved so much money when I decided to not buy as many processed foods, because now what I'm doing is I'm buying the things that I need to actually make it from scratch. Like, we're gonna make a pizza from scratch, and I wanted to use a pesto sauce, so this is how I started this conversation, looking for pesto and just couldn't find any. And then the one that I did find had so many ingredients in it, I just wasn't comfortable with it. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna make my pesto from scratch. I'll just make it myself. So really start thinking about the stuff that you're eating, the things that you're buying. When you're making your grocery list, you can put the same thing on your list that you normally put on your list. But look at the label. Start looking at the packages and seeing if they have 20 different ingredients. Seeing if they have ingredients that have words that's 20 letters long. I mean, like, come on. Think about that stuff. Because I really do believe that at the end of the day, our health is in our hand. You know, you hear all the time people say your health is in your plate. If you haven't been feeling good, if you feel like you've been having brain fog, if you feel like you can't put your finger on it, you don't know what it is, but you feel off, start eating a little bit more clean. Start eliminating some processed foods a little bit at a time. Eating more fruits and vegetables. And then see how you feel. So I hope y'all enjoyed that. Wanted to share it with you. I hope it brings you some type of knowledge. Make sure that you like this video if you found it helpful. Consider subscribing to my channel. I post 2 videos every single week. So hopefully you guys will start paying attention to your labels and thinking about how what you're eating is making you feel. Let me know if you have any comments, any questions, any concerns. Tell me what you think about this type of video. Is it educational for you? Is it helpful? Does it make you think like, okay, maybe I do need to start watching this? So I thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to y'all later.